expect an answer from them, but I said, can I tell another story? So here, the man looked at me. I never told the story, and I'm telling you now. I told you that the place where I learned how to do the drafting, the head of this office was an engineer, and he was a very high-ranking SS officer. He never made eye contact with me. Never. He wanted something from me. He looked aside, had a stick, and he told me to go there or to go there. Never had eye contact with me. Couldn't bear it. Anyway, that's not the story, but I said to them, do you want to hear another story? And I told them this story that I may have told you about the cold. No. I told you how difficult it was to work. I told you another little story before I tell the big story that I told the Germans. I told you that we started working at 6 and ended at 6, and then stood in line and went back to the camp. And the night shift came exactly at 6 o'clock, arrived here, and they had to start at 6 o'clock. And people who are technologically advanced don't know how to organize this, that a group is leaving at 6 and a group is coming at 6. There shouldn't be a clash. But anyway, this is how it was. 6 o'clock exactly, the SS began to whistle. They were sitting behind us in the big hall where there were many, many, many machines, about 90 machines there had to be. And the SS sit behind us because if a girl goes to the bathroom, they must go with her. She shouldn't run away. You understand? They must watch out for us. And they must be there to tell us it's time to stop working, time to start working. So, one time in the evening at 6 o'clock, we hear whistling and tza'akot, screaming. Quickly, go get your coats. The coats were like on a mezzanine. So this is the big ulam, a huge hall, and over there, if you go there, and there are a staircase about maybe as wide as that sofa over there, a few, maybe 15 steps, and that leads to a mezzanine where there's a room with hooks, and that's where we put our coats. And now we have to get our coats so that the next group can get here and hang their coats so that they start at 6. Everything has to be done at 6 o'clock. You understand the chokhmah? And the SS yells, schnell, 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 maher, 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 run, 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 and they are after us, and we are running like crazy, and we fill up the steps, and the top of the steps on the floor where the coats are, stand an SS like this, standing up, and the girls reach up to her. They are up to the last step, right? The steps are full of us. And she stands there and she says, animals! And pushes us down. down, back. Okay, that's another story.
It's just sadistic. It was so evil.
Absolutely sadistic. I never thought of this word. But absolutely sadistic. Okay, so the last story. We decided when we came home, first of all, it take us when we were liberated, we were almost like 2 kilometers from Bohemia, which was part of Czechia. And we had to come home through all of Slovakia and Carpathorus. And there were no trains, there's no buses, there's nothing. We walked 600 kilometers until we reached the border of Carpathorus, where Hust was, my town. And if you ask me, I don't know where I put my head down every night. There's 2 weeks that we walked. We didn't have decent shoes. We didn't have anything in our hands. We didn't have money. We didn't have food. We didn't have money. We didn't have, I don't know who gave us food or where we went to a bathroom. Just walked with thousands of other people who came over to us, men who may have wanted to come to the east of the place where we were liberated, or west, to Holland or to Germany or to France or to the western part or the eastern part. We were all there, the men in their striped uniforms. Many men came over to us and asked, maybe you met my mother or my sister? Did you meet somebody by this name or that name? Of course not. Very difficult trip. But it took us almost 2 weeks to make a decision to go home, because we didn't see really any logical point why we should go home. Okay, but we went because we hated to go back to the Goyim, because they were impossible to us. They lived with us. They worked for us. They shopped in our house. We used their labor, their work. We had a good, decent relationship with them. No, since things became bad for Jews, they didn't come close to us. They didn't say a word. When the Germans came in, no one ever of those people whom we knew personally came over and said, Mrs. Friedman, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. No one.
And they saw you being deported?
And after, of course, at the time when we were going to the train, from the ghetto to the train, to be taken to Auschwitz, we were going through a street where there was a ghetto before here. There was a ghetto on the side of the street. I turned my head there. Windows, houses are not very tall, and you can see in the windows people are walking back and forth. People are there. They came to empty, to loot the house. While we were there, my house was looted 2 days after we got into the ghetto. My sister went from the ghetto. It was possible to leave the ghetto. It wasn't hermetically sealed. She wanted to see the house. And she goes home in front of the house, and there is a there's a horse and a buggy in front of the house. And there is a little window. There was a little window about this wide and about this high from the street to our basement. This is the house where we lived. And that window was placed aside, taken out and put aside. And she sees that inside our what do you call it? What's under the house?
It's like a basement.
A basement, yes. That's where my father's second business was. He was selling mineral water. It had to be kept cold, and the basement was always cold. That's what we used instead of refrigerators. That's where we bought the winter supply of vegetables and apples, fruits, and we kept it there. It was kept fresh. It was cool. And so my father, in the last minute, before we left for Auschwitz, we left for the ghettos, we left our home. He ran up to the second floor where our apartment was. In the middle was our store, one of the stores, two businesses my father had. One was in the main floor and one was in the basement. And we sold his stuff, his mineral water, to the, he sold it to the pharmacies, because they sold it instead of, not like supplements to medication. Because medication wasn't developed like today, but we had excellent mineral waters in Europe. My father was the only person who imported those waters, and one time, and we were taken when the Hungarians came in, we were, one of the things was, first of all, that they kicked me out of school at age 12, because we are Jews, all the Jewish kids out. There won't be any teaching of Jewish children. That's how the teacher expressed herself. And the next thing that I usually mention when I tell linearly my story, that the second thing was that a goy came to the store, and I was there standing near my father, and this young man came and he said to my father, I would like to stay here. My father says, okay, of course. He knew. He came to take away my father's stores, okay? And he asked my father to work to help him, show him how to run a business. And after a couple of weeks, he said, I already learned it, fine. Came out, went home, and at that time they took every store was in the hands of Jewish people, except for maybe 3 or 4 stores that handled the food, thrift food, and clothing for the local population. It was different. No suits or anything. Okay? And they took away everybody's license, every Jewish person's license to operate a business. And a week later, and we lived very comfortably, really a middle-class existence. The storekeepers all constituted the middle class. okay? And they started taking away licenses. Every day another store, not for many days, closed up. Not many goyim wanted to go into stores. And my father said, "Come, children, I have to tell you something." And we came. I had two sisters, older sisters, and my mother was there. And he said, "You know, we don't have a lively parnassa anymore." And I was 12 years old. And I understood that we won't have bread on the table. Where would we have it from? There was nothing that my father could have done there to earn money, or my mother. She wouldn't have hesitated for a moment to do any kind of work to earn a livelihood. But to me this was so scary, and it was. And then everybody lost his livelihood. So what happened to all these Jews? We had at one time 8,000 Jews. It was a nice kehillah. But this time we only had maybe 7,000, or we will have had 7,000, because they all called up, the Hungarian army called up every Jewish youngster from 18 and up. And so in a couple of years, when the Russian front, the Eastern Front, opened up, these boys were brought up there, and they did the war work. They built the railroad tracks for the German army, and they pulled out the dead people from the front, and they built ditches, and they built mass graves, where they brought our 20,000 of our families, 20,000 people who were entire families, on a Shabbos. They brought them to Ukraine, which is a different country, and they shot them, they took them from the trains to the mass graves with the Jewish boys dug, and they shot all these people, 20,000 people. And there were many who were not shot to death, and they were under the bodies and could not escape. They died in there. There were maybe 2 or 3 altogether who did come out of the grave, who were strong enough, they were injured, and they weren't squeamish enough not to come through the bodies of their fathers and mothers and sisters and brothers who were dead, killed. And this was my cousin's son. He was 14 years old, and he managed to get out. He was, until there, he was in a yeshiva, yeshiva Ktana. And his grandfather was my uncle, my mother's brother. And he managed to put together a letter and send it away. I'll tell you how. That those enlisted to the slave labor under the aegis of the Hungarian army, they were in visual from this massacre. And they saw when the massacre occurred. And then these Jewish boys were allowed to move away, and they were allowed to write letters home. And so this kid, we figured out in 50 years how a kid of 14 could write a letter to his grandfather. So it was that they helped him put together a letter and got him put him a stamp and an envelope and a paper, and wrote to his grandfather, Zaytz mach matzel, tatzil oti, tatzilu otam. He wrote him how he got where he was. We never heard about the kid anymore. Okay, but that's not the story. Now, the last story that I want to tell you was that when we came home, and I told you how we were told on a train station that my mother is at home by somebody. That man came over to our train. He was leaving this morning from Khust and was going to Budapest. But when he told us, your mother is at home, he took his stuff and came over to our train so that he can bring us to our mother, because we wouldn't find her, because they didn't live in the house. They couldn't. So this is simpler. So he'll come, and these are little kids. I mean, I was 17, my sister was 19. This is a man maybe of 40 or something. He was a father, had been a father once. Anyway, and we were, one sister, Alti, my middle sister, I was the youngest. My middle sister was very, very neurotic. She didn't want to stay here. She couldn't stay here. She couldn't stay here. She was afraid she'll see her coat on somebody, or my curtains in somebody's house. She couldn't stand that idea. And so she wanted to go over to Romania. So my mother got her a peasant who lived near the border, and he brought her over, and in Romania, Satmare, where the Satmar Rebbe was from, my cousins were there, and we were with them in Auschwitz, and we were close cousins. So she went, stayed with them, worked a little bit, and then we all left the place, also smuggled, only smuggled.
Gita, can I just ask you, when you saw your mother after coming back home, how was that encounter with your mother? It must have been the most amazing...
I'll tell you. This man ran ahead, found out where she was, and brought us to her. My mother was standing on a step entering into a house. I don't know whose house it was. She had a shaitel, because that was very important. She had cheeks. She was so thin when she left us. And she held in her hand, I remember the colors, a sack made from cloth. She found, I don't know what, and she sewed a bag, a cloth bag, and just full of cookies. She was waiting for us. And of course, I have long stories to tell about what happened after the war with my mother. She went through, I'll tell you, went through I'm not going to it.
But Gita, when you saw your mother and your sisters saw your mother, that must have been one of the most unbelievable experiences of your life.
But that happened, the surprise effect happened in the train station when we heard that my mother is at home.
You must have
But
been...
then when my mother told us what she had to run through, can I tell you one story that how my mother was? Okay, we thought that these 8 women whom the SS selected to be out, we thought that they'll take her to the gas chambers, because that's how it was before. But this was already at the point when Hitler already gave up on the war, and he knew he lost the war. So now everything is different. And so, yes. So we had to get the help of the peasant. I don't know, we had some money. My mother. So they took her not to the gas chambers, but they took those 8 women back to where we came from that morning. That morning all of us were in the sea lager, sea camp, okay? So they put them back there. There were still women, a lot of women. So they went back. That's all.
But you didn't know this?
Of course we didn't know. How could we know that? But the same afternoon, did I tell you about my father? Yes. That happened the same afternoon. This was Isru Chag, Simchat Torah. That afternoon, that day, everything happened. My mother was taken away from us. We were sent to the labor camp, and my father came back to be killed in Auschwitz.
And that's when your father asked,
this girl, yes. Okay. So what happened then? So this young lady, she's a young woman, maybe 25 years old, 28 years old. She was from Khust. She's a relative, and she knew who my mother was. And she went straight to my mother and told her how my father looked and what did he say. Okay. A few days later, Hitler went absolutely crazy. I heard this on a Yom HaShoah when Bibi Netanyahu and what's his name? The president, Rivlin, both of them have a major speech on Yad Vashem, on Yom HaShoah, and they both spoke. Okay. They were talking about that point in history when Hitler went crazy because he was glorious. He felt he's really swept through Europe and conquered all Europe, and he doesn't have control over Hungary, who asked him to be part of his Axis countries. He asked to be part of Hitler's Axis countries, and he says, of course you can. And you are allowed to occupy this part of Europe and this part of Europe and Romania and Carpathia Rus and Yugoslavia and all of these things you may, because we came home, my mother. So in the last time when Hitler went crazy, that he wants to liquidate the heavy-duty camps. He doesn't want the authorities, the Allied or Russia, to come and find and see the camps. He doesn't want. He's embarrassed. So he wanted to destroy them. So he said, just take the people out, send them to... So when they were in the sea camp, they took groups and they sent them somewhere. Normally, you would get a telephone from a factory, or we need 100 or 50 or 1,000 workers, send us. That was Auschwitz. That's how they got rid of the people who didn't go to die. So in this case, they started just people, to send people away from Auschwitz. It should be empty by the time the Russians arrive here. And they were already very close. So
they also organized death marches, that they would go on the death march.
That was earlier, and that was small groups they worked in the factory, like we worked, the 200 people. We could have been sent, but it seems that the SS didn't want it, because they didn't want to be found in the field by the Russians and be sent to the, what you call in Russia, the Siberia, which they did. They caught people and they sent them to Russia when they were coming home from the camps. My cousin, they asked him, where are you from? He was going home from a camp. Where are you from? Hungary. Ah, you're a Hungarian. Okay, you come with me. Two people I know who were taken on the way home from a year in the severe concentration camp. They were taken back to Russia to work another year, because they thought they don't know that these are Jewish Hungarian people and not Goyish Hungarian people. They thought they're Hungarians, the same who were allies of Hitler. Okay, but I want to tell that story of my mother. So they took 150 people. When I left my mother, she was healthy. She was weakened and she lost weight, but she was still healthy. My mother had had a heart condition from age 30 when she was at home, and I was a little kid. And anyway, 150 people contained these 8 people. These 8 people who were selected out from my group stayed together. They stayed together. Whatever one does, the others do also. And they were there this happened October the 4th, when was the day that Isru Chag Sukkot, Simchat Torah, and now it was January the 5th, so how much is it? November, December, January, 3 months, okay? So one morning in January, my mother came there, got very sick with her heart. She had insufficiency of heart insufficiency, lung insufficiency. And they let her lie down, and they brought her that piece of bread every day and the soup every day. She didn't have to work. There was no work for them anyway. But it was winter, and one day she wakes up in the morning and she hears somebody with a loudspeaker shouting in the Hatzer.
The courtyard.
Courtyard, yes. We are leaving this camp. Whoever wants to live, come with us, come out and line up because we are going to leave soon. My mother finds two schmattes with which they wash the floor, tied them on her feet because she didn't have shoes, and took her cover, bed cover, you know.
Like a blanket?
A blanket. She tied it on herself somehow. She should be all tied and warm. And she went out to the yard. And they are lined up there. There were 150, not that many. And she meets an SS. And the SS knew her because she knew she was in bed all the time. She was the bad one, the sick one. And she says in German to her, my mother spoke German well. And he says, where are you going? And my mother answered him, I want to live, so I am going with you, with the group. And he said, if you go with the group, you will not live. Stay here and I will help you. And my mother goes to the groups and looks for the 8 ladies, her comrades, and tells them the story and says, just disappear, hide yourself until they go away. And they stayed, and he helped to hide them. This was a factory at brick factory, and they have large chimneys with shelves where they put the bricks to dry. That's a process of brick making.
SS saved your mother? An SS German officer actually saved your mother?
Of course she saved my mother.
That's amazing.
Okay, I'm sure they saved his life also. Because in a couple of days, first of all, while they were there alone, while the group left, he gave them food. And he kept them hidden. And a few days later, the Russians came. And there was among them a pretty high-ranking officer who spoke Yiddish. And they spoke to him Yiddish, and they were very good to them. And after about, and my mother, and they went out into the village where they were and looted somehow homes for carpets, Persian rugs, and a children's baby carriage. She folded it up and put it there, and a couple of these things, a couple of curtains. They will be good for skirts for my children when they come home. That was my mother. And the next day, the SS of the Russian officer ordered a train to Host. And then that's how my mother. And I have to tell you this, the end of this story. So, we ran away from Host to Romania, and we went to Bucharest, which is the capital of Romania, because they one of the Jewish organizations major Jewish organizations, put out a statement that they are going to give to every Nitzol Shoah some money. And everybody went to Romania. We didn't know the language, we didn't know where we'll put our head down, who's going to give us food, nothing. You go to Bucharest because that's where you get the first money in your hand. So I went first with my cousin, Lily, to vanguard this thing, and then 3-4 days later I see my mother and my sisters come. Where are you going to sleep? Who knows? Where everybody else is going to. Train loads, full of trains, all came to Romania because they gave us, I don't know, my sister said $20. I think it's more close to say that $50 they gave us. It was a lot of money. It was money. We didn't have any other. Okay, so this was the height of the summer. We got the money. We went back to Satmar. Satmar was Romania, and we had cousins there who already got an apartment because they had lived there. But we didn't have an apartment and we didn't know where to stay for the holidays. And this was so sad for us. Rosh Hashanah came and we didn't have where to stay. We wanted to go to shul. This is the first free holiday. No place. Until my cousins helped us find a job for my mother, which was a young couple who had escaped the Shoah with Goyish papers in Budapest, and they began immediately after the Russians came, October, November, around that time. They liberated Khust, my town, they liberated Budapest, and they started doing business. And then they came back to Satmar where they had lived, and they had money and they had enough money, they had no children yet, to give my mother a job of cooking for the from people. And my mother ran the house for them, for the Yom Tov, for all the Yom Tovim. And so we had a place to put our heads down, and we could sit down, and we could hear Kiddush, and we had a decent holiday. Okay.
And Gita, did you know about your father at this time?
No.
You didn't know at this time?
No, but now you'll hear it. First of all, now we are standing at a terrible crossroads. Where are we going to live? We don't know.
Hello, good evening. Yes, who is it?
Okay. So, where were we?
You don't know, you're at a crossroads. You don't know where you're going to live, what's going to happen, where you're going to stay.
No, about my father. Okay.
You
No,
still hadn't
at that,
heard.
yes. At that point, after the holidays and during the holidays, we were talking all along. Where are we going now? I mean, what do we know? We never traveled. What do we know where? We don't have I told you maybe that I told the German president when he shook my hand and said, "I'm very sorry about this." And when I told him, when I told the story about our liberation, and instead of jubilating, we were sitting there, miyuashim, despondent. And I said to him, you see, we did not have a Moses who should lead us, who should say, kids, I'll take you home. We don't have anybody to lead us. We are all young kids. We don't know anything. And, okay. And we don't have, I told him, and we also don't have a place which will be Zavat Halav Udvar, that is running with milk and honey. Nobody promised us such a land. So we have nothing to be looking forward to. We don't know it. No, but now I am with my mother and with my sisters. So I feel a little safer. We don't talk about my father. Maybe we remembered, we said, I'm sure if he would be alive, he would have notified us somehow. Everybody lied, everybody died. Everybody in our conception, we knew that everybody, I told you, when we arrived in Birkenau, 90% of every train load was taken straight to the gas chambers. 90%. Our train had about 2,500 people. Our train. 2,000 were killed the same day. A few were left as young women, maybe 150. Do you understand? 2,000 were taken away. Maybe we have 500 people. 500 to remain. The rest is all killed tonight. So out of the 500, there are the women. There's a group of men who contains my father. These were taken to the coal mines. These are the men. That's it. Between these two, there were 250.
Gita, can I just ask you, when you got off the train, was Mengele, did you actually see Mengele?
Who knew about Mengele?
No.
You think that we would know? We didn't know anything. When we arrived, it was for us something entirely new, because about this nobody was allowed to write. We have no idea about a gas chamber. Do you understand? We did not know what it. We thought that we would meet other groups. My sister was caught by the Hungarian police the day the Germans came in, the SS came in to get the Jews. My sisters were sent to Budapest to learn a trade, because we had a certificate to go to Palestine, and my father didn't want them to come and not have something to do. So we sent them to Budapest. Nobody did anything for them. They were two young girls. They found a place where they learned a trade. I have no idea what trade. And we never had a chance to talk to them. My sister Esther, went down my father sent It was 3 weeks to Pesach. My father sent a message, a telegram to the girls. Come home for Pesach right away. And they answered, yes, we are coming. And to my older sister, who went down from the apartment where they lived to the railway station to ask whether all the railway schedules are running as normally, being as normal, or did they change everything? When she came down to the railway station, there were loads of people there, all Jews, Jewish men, Baker, who, when they lost their livelihood, everybody lost his livelihood. Do you understand? In the small cities. In small cities, there is nothing a Jew can do. There is no agriculture. Everybody has his little 2x2 plot where he grows his string beans or something, and then he brings it to the market to sell. I mean, there was nothing that our people could do there at that time. They went to Budapest. Whoever didn't have a big family went to Budapest. There you can buy yourself papers of a non-Jew, Catholic, like Christian papers. So now you are for sure more safe than you were in Hust. And okay, and they find a job, because it's always in a big city you can find a job. And they came to the station to ask for the same thing. They want to go home for Pesach to the families. And the police knows that this will happen. And they come down to the place and they make everybody identify himself. Everybody's ID card had a J, which is Jewish, and or something as other to identify him. And then they took all of these people into a Hungarian concentration camp that was waiting for Hungarian Jews. It was an old prison that was sitting there waiting, and they took my sister and everybody, who's at that time maybe 21 years old, 23 years old. And a few years, and Artie, my other sister, who shared the room with her, with an old lady, waited for her to come back, but she didn't come back. So she opened the radio and she heard that something happened at the railway station, a raid. And she was very, very upset, Miss Kaina, because she knew that she should tell the parents, but she didn't want to tell them. So from then on, she did not send a telegram or write a letter or call. We didn't have telephones, so there's no point in calling. But we didn't hear from her until Pesach. And this was now less than 3 weeks. So let's say a week passed by. So it's only 2 weeks. Then it was 1 week. And Erev Pesach, we still didn't know about her. We got a letter from Etu. I told you about that. But she didn't write us to us. And it was very scary. And my parents were so, so sad. Okay? So that was about when we came home, about my father, we thought maybe he's sick somewhere and he cannot communicate with us. but otherwise he would. But so we didn't talk about him. But somehow we felt he was strong, he was a strong person, and we knew when we arrived to Auschwitz that I figured out that he was being taken out to send to work with strong people. He was in the group of very strong people, and he was also. Now, we are talking, my sister Alti, I told you, she ran away from Hust 3 days after she arrived. And she said, let's go to Germany. We'll be living among Jews. Only in Germany can you now, in Europe, can you live among Jews. Okay, so we are going to German DP camps. That's the best. So we go through Budapest, Prague, and then to Germany. We are in Budapest and we want to buy, my mother brought these things and they are with us. She sold it. She managed, I told you, some carpets and something that and she kept some of the things to make us skirts or dresses or something. And we arrive in Budapest. There is a school which was made into a, what do you call the people who, refugee camp. A big school, and everybody knew it. That was the center that we had to go to, because that was organized by one of the Jewish organizations. And we are supposed to go, we went to Budapest because they have a hapishpishim, shuk hapishpishim.
It's like a market with...
Flea market.
Flea market.
Flea market. An excellent flea market. You can buy a lot of good things for free. And at that time, you probably never heard about this, but we knew it from Hust. You can buy a coat, an old coat, and open all the seams, make it into pieces, turn it over, and you have a brand new kind of, and make a coat of it or a dress of it or something. So we'll buy. My mother had her money in a girdle. Inside the girdle, she put a little pocket, and whatever money she gained, she put it there. So that one day, we are going to the market, flea market. The money is gone. Can you imagine? I heard this story told many times. People who had hidden silver candelabras and valuables, and somehow it was gone, stolen or lost. This is, I think, God did not want us to save stuff, material stuff. That's not where it's at. And we had nothing. 4 people, we had nothing left. So we went to Prague. In Prague, we went first to a hospital to take my mother because she was not examined since we came home. It's a few months already. And they examined my mother, and then they said, okay, she stays here, and I'm staying with her. And my 2 sisters take a train to Germany. But the train doesn't go to Germany because Germany and Czechia are arch enemies. And so the train only goes to a city called Cheb, C-H-E-B, in Eger, it's called in German, Eger. It doesn't go any further. Czech trains don't go into Germany. They turn around and go back. But at that time, there existed, this was yet before the war of independence. And this was in December. This happened in this Christmas time. And when the train arrived in Heb, it was cold and it was snowing and raining. And we had a lot of help from Israel. They had a group which was called Bricha. You heard about them? You heard about them? Bricha?
Was that the to bring illegally into, to bring like refuge, to bring the...
To escape.
To escape.
Yeah, Bricha is escape, and they would come from Israel and help people get into Germany from all over when they arrived at this point, because that's the way it worked. And the Bricha didn't arrive because it was bad weather, okay? And the kids, the girls, get off in Heb, and there is a bunch of people who are waiting for the train. For anybody? No, for nobody in particular. They are waiting for anyone who arrives, if they are especially Holocaust survivors. Among them were people whom they started to talk in Hungarian immediately. They were from our area. And these people, they became our best friends, said, listen, where are you going? And they said, we were going to go to Germany. They said, don't go, stay here. This used to be the Sudeten.
Oh, Sudetenland.
Sudetengebiet. And the Germans were chased out. And so you have apartments for very cheap. You can get a farm with animals if you are willing to take it for free. And this is a good place. People are good here, and they are Judenfreunde. And okay, so they said, come over and sleep over with us, and we'll talk in the morning, and they did. And they called us and they said, we are staying here, and we found an apartment, a big, nice apartment. And so my mother and me are coming home, are coming to a place, and there was one man from a little town not far from ours. He was he owned a movie house, and he was a very intelligent man. He was much older than we were. We were in their 20s. My mother was almost 50 by now, and he was 42 or something. And he had nobody, but he got friendly with me and my mother. She's coming with us. Where we'll be, he'll be. A new family. And okay, so we went and stayed there. Found an apartment. My sister found a job immediately. Eventually she married this man, Henry Schwartz, his name was. He's a very intelligent man, very well educated, not like we were. And I left soon after we settled in to Prague, because finally, from age 12, I was now 18, 6 years I haven't had any education. Let me start studying. Somebody promised me, she got a job, I don't know where we picked her up, in a store, and behind the store there was a sofa and a shower and a sink and a little nothing. And you can sleep there. You can stay there for free. Good. Now comes the story. And I was looking for a job, first of all. There is no one to support me. So I have to have a place to earn money to go to school. So I went and found a job in drafting. I found out that the thing that I was doing in Germany, Zeichnen, is called drafting. And I found a job like that, and I was supposed to start on a Monday, okay? Because in Czechia, on Sunday, Shabbat and Sunday, there's no work, mostly, but Beikar Sunday. But Shabbat is work. So I have a job waiting for me, and on Friday I get a telephone call, and somebody says to me, are you ready to start working on Monday? And I said, yes, I am. And then they say, would you mind coming in on Saturday to work, because our telephonist, the telephone girl, is not well, and we need somebody to answer telephone. And I said, no, I'm sorry, I cannot. But why not? It's not work, just sitting on the phone and answering phone. Sorry, I cannot. Is there a reason for it? I said, yes. So what is it? I said, you wouldn't understand it anyway. So, never mind, I cannot come. So then 5 minutes later she calls back and she says, the boss would like to talk to you. I wasn't hired by the boss. I was hired by somebody who worked in an office worker there. And he said, I am the boss. And I hear that you were offered to come and work on Saturday and you're not willing. Can you tell me why? I said, not really. Well, is there a reason? I said, yes. He says, would you come and talk to me? Yeah, it was very near where I lived. And I come in, and I stand there in a conference room, and there's a huge, big table, and he stands at this end, and I come in from the door and stand at the other end of the table. And he says to me, he repeats the girl's story, that we asked you to come and help us out because we really need somebody. I said, I'm sorry, but I cannot come. Well, why? I said, there is a reason, but you wouldn't understand it anyway. He says, try me. And I said to him, you see, we are Jews from Karpatorus, and we are religious people, and we are not allowed to work on the Sabbath. And it's quiet, and I'm very shy. I never talked to somebody like that. And I look, my eyes are down, and it's quiet. And I look at him, and I see he is crying. He's crying. The trains, the what do you call it?
Tears.
Tears are coming down his cheek. And I go like this, I don't know why he's crying. And he says, so there are still some of you alive? I had friends. I had also friends who were religious Jews. And I thought that they murdered all of you. That's all I remember. And then I left. I know I didn't go to work there as a draftsman. I don't even know their name, the company's name, nothing. I know that this, now we'll come back to Budapest. Okay, this was maybe 2 months later than when we were in Budapest. We were in this refugee camp where we wanted to go shop today, and we couldn't because we had no money. And then there was, in this huge room, there were little iron beds. Everybody had a little iron bed. And my mother is sitting on her white iron bed, and we sit on chairs in front of her. And she's telling us the story that I had told you, that my father, it's coming. So my mother is telling me that she heard this story from this girl who stood with my father and talked to him, and he said to tell if there are any people left, any women left from Hust, go and tell them that today 200 Hungarian men came back from Buna, Monovic. It's a place where there are coal mines. And among them, there are 20 men from Hust, and I am also from Hust, and my name is Wolf Friedman. This is what my father told the girl, and we just came back from working in a coal mine, very hard work. We got just a piece of bread in the morning and a soup, and and tell them that tomorrow we won't be here anymore. And his face was black from coal. He didn't have where to wash, and his body, it was clear that he is like a skeleton, that he doesn't have anything on his body, no flesh. And my mother is telling us this story. And we are sitting there, and I'm not crying. And I said, what's the matter with me? I didn't love my father. I'm not sorry he died. And I look at my sisters the same. And I was ashamed. And I started thinking from then on a lot. And I said to myself, in our tradition, when a person dies, chas v'chalila, in a family, then there is one person who dies, and a number of people, parents and brothers and sisters and children, who have to sit shiva and mourn. And there are many people who come to say Hamakom Yenachem Etchem. And here we are in a situation 6 million people died, and the people who survived are all mourners. Oh, yes, sitting Shiva. After the 6 million people who died, there were many who needed to sit Shiva, but did not sit Shiva. All the Nitzolei Shoah and others are sitting Shiva, and no one ever anywhere came and told us, I'm so sorry that this happened to you. It includes all the Goyim who lived with us, who were in Hus. No one came over to say, I'm so sorry that nothing happened to you. And I am saying, the man with the tears, he showed me that he cared, that it hurt him, that we were almost all murdered. But I told you the story of the skeleton, and I'm very sorry that what remained in my head, I spoke to the lady who talked to my father. She lives in Australia. And
how did your father know that he was going to die the next day?
that what?
How did he know that he was going to die the next day? That he will be gone the next day, that he's going to die. How did he know?
How did my father know that?
He was going to die.
Oh, by that time, the women didn't know anything. But the men knew everything.
They knew about the chimneys.
They know about the
gas
chamber and the crematorium and everything.
He knew.
And he knew. He knew, and he knew that this was the sea camp. Men knew everything. They had much more access to information than we had. But this is it. This is it. Was terrible, terrible, terrible. That we couldn't even we couldn't even cry. It was so commonplace. It was.
But Gita, I just want to mention, and I want to ask you, when did you decide to start speaking about what's happened to you?
Oh, I didn't start. I didn't decide. I didn't make any decision. It was convenient for me not to speak when we lived for the 3 years in Czechia, because there's no one who was interested. It didn't do anything for me. I'll tell you. I worked for 7 years. I got a doctorate in psychology, and I couldn't get a job afterwards. It was very hard. It was a bad time, and we didn't get people who worked at the university. These groups, who are graduates of the university, and then they want to help their colleagues who are graduating now, and they try to find all kinds of ways to find jobs. And they realize there are no jobs for all kinds of graduates. Not only psychology graduates, others. It didn't. But then, I told you that my children, all my children, 3 children, after they graduated high school, we sent them to Israel to study for a year, just Torah. So the girls came to Michlala, and my boy went to Kol Torah,
In Beit Vegan.
Beit Vagan, and he was there a year, and he said he doesn't want to come home. Could he stay another year? And in Kol Torah there was a rabbi from America, and he was in touch with us. He was like a protector of these youngsters. My son was 17 years old, and he told us he thinks it would be better if Zevi would go to a smaller yeshiva, not Kol Torah. It's a big yeshiva, he is still too young. And the small yeshiva he wanted to send him to was Rav Shlomo Zalman's son, Rav Shmuel Auerbach. So he went to Yesharich, and he's in the middle of town. And and then he found a girl. Somebody shotgunned him a girl, and he wrote to us, and so we came to be here to see the girl. And we saw him and saw the girl, and fine, and then we came on the holidays, and we prepared the wedding. And he had a beautiful wedding here, everything fine. And Zevi kept making shas. He made the Siyum Shas. Rav Shmuel Auerbach came to the Simcha of the Siyum Shas. And he came to the wedding, and he was very protective of Zevi. Zevi stayed there for 3 years. And then the wife, Zevi's wife's father was a Rav. They are from France, but they went to live in Gateshead because he was a sort of, I don't know whether he was really about tshuva or what it was, but he had some kind of high degree in science, maybe a master's degree. But he left it and he went to study in Gateshead. And all the chicks, except for one daughter, the last one, every child was born in Gateshead. And they speak a very good English. And Zehu. Everything was fine, and we helped Zevi, Baruch Hashem. And my husband very much, he was a graduate of Technion, and he wanted Zevi to, the girls were also graduates of very good, very famous universities. And Zevi didn't want to, he wanted to stay here, and he wanted to learn and learn and learn and learn. And he learned from Mifal Shas. He immediately started learning for Dayanut. That's what he wanted to do. And I was fully behind it, because this was one school where they give them tests every month and every 3 months and every I don't know what, and comprehensive tests of everything that he learned. So we know that he's really learning this stuff. You know that Zevi, my son, did you ever meet him? You should.
But he's a Dayan. He's a...
Yes, but you should meet him. He's a lovely guy.
I'm sure.
And he is... okay. And he had a very good... He's Rav Usher Weiss, you know about him.
Mm-hmm.
He was in his Beis Din for many, until now, From then on, maybe 20 years, he was with him as second Dayan. There are two Dayanim. There is the chief Dayan and two Dayanim. And I always asked him, does Rav Usher Weiss allow you to express your opinion in a case? Total freedom, never withheld permission for them to express themselves. So he learned very good Dayanot. And now, I don't know, a few months ago, maybe half a year ago, rabbis left this Bezdin and made a different setup because they are not, the Dayanim are not getting paid, private Dayanim. Not the little ones, not the two. Never got any pay. And he took over, Zevi took over as to be now the main Dayan, and he got another two with him, and he says it's going well, and he's getting people. He'll be known, because Zevi is very bright, Baruch Hashem, and they will get to know him, and they will see how good a mind he has, and how well he knows. He's well known.
And you decided to come to Israel with your husband?
No. My husband had to die for me to come to Israel. He had a relatively minor operation, and he fell into a coma during the operation. And he had a coma for 2.5 weeks, and he died. And the kids came to me, to be with me, and they said, you're coming to Israel? And I said, of course. So we brought him here to be buried. We brought my mother here to be buried a few years earlier. And that was such a simcha for us. When we saw we were there. But when we were notified from the hospital, she was with a nurse that night. In the morning we were notified by the Hevra Kadisha. My mother died, and one of us said, maybe we should take her to Israel. And the two of the others jumped, of course, that's an idea. And I had a brother-in-law here, and we called him, and he made the arrangement. And we came, and that was a wonderful idea, that he's here. And where he's buried, which is Har Tamir, you know where it is? It's empty, like 3-4 graves. Now it's all for... I have a place next to him.
Many, many years. But Gita, when did you start speaking publicly? When did you decide?
Okay. So I told you that I worked for 7 years for the New York Telephone Company. It was a wonderful job. It was very satisfying. And I did a great job there. I was no supervision. Nobody had to supervise me. I knew what to do. And my boss was a from Jew, a doctor. It was in a medical center. And he was so proud of me. I wrote reports, which were very good reports. And he wrote such a recommendation to me. And I came here, and I was sure. I went straight to the telephone company, and I told them what I did in America and what I would like to do here. And he said, אל תדאגי, אנחנו נמצא לך עבודה. I spoke Hebrew then also. And then I met the doctor. He made me, the guy from the, what do they call, the manpower, made me meet the doctor of the company. There was a doctor, medical doctor. And in my presence, he said to the doctor, so what should I do? He says, hire her yesterday. We need somebody like this. Okay. And he didn't hire me because he said, אין לי תקן בשבילה. Do you know what's a תקן?
Like a position, I think. Position, there's no...
Yeah. There's no job description
there's no...
that fits me. But they can make a job description. I will be the only one. I was the only one for 95,000 telephone company workers. I was the only doctor, the only psychologist. But they know the doctor, Cycowycz, Sid Cycowycz, needed me. So he created a new job description. This is it. This is the problem. Anyway, but this was God's Darkei Hashem. I didn't get the job. I was very depressed when I came to Israel. I was happy to be here, but in a half a year, I liquidated my house, the car, stuff that I had in the house, everything. I bought all the electric appliances in America. I made big, everything by myself. And I arrived in Israel, and I cannot find. And it was the trauma of liquidating a lovely little house, an Israeli doctor came to America, and I invited him. And he said, what a house. 300 square meters I had. You know what a 300 meter, and plus a little garden here and a garden in the front. So all of this was very difficult. And then when I came, and I don't have a job, and then one day I am meeting a woman who is much younger than I am, my children's age. They were neighbors, she was a neighbor. Her parents, she was born in China, in Shanghai. Her father was in the Mir Yeshiva in Shanghai. And her siblings also were born in Shanghai. In any case, she came here and she married a rabbi, and she's a social worker. And we met somewhere, but we recognized each other. And I said, listen, honey, I have to have a job. You must get me a job. And she says, you see that house? We were standing on King George in front of Rehov Hillel. Hillel, there is a big building. She points to it. Have you been there? I said, no. What is there? Amcha. What's Amcha? Just go there. They will hire you right away. And I went and they hired me right away. And I said to this man who was head of the staff, he was also a social worker or something, what may I talk about with the Nitzolei Shoah? And he says, Hakol. I remember having had a psychotherapist who was a psychiatrist, head of psychiatry in Mount, what is it,
Is it Mount Sinai?
Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. And he was very well known, and he was psychoanalyst. And he had a lot of fun psychoanalyzing me. But he didn't do anything. He didn't ever ask me one single word Shoah. And he knew. I told him, I am a Shoah survivor. No. He wouldn't. He once, during my seeing him, twice a week, he did psychoanalysis. And I went to see a movie, The Man in a Glass Booth. Did you see it?
It's with Eichmann. The Eichmann trial.
Yes, Eichmann. Yes, right. And I came out of there and I come to him, to the psychiatrist, and I start spewing out the Shoah. And I didn't let him come to a word, because I talked to him for the 45 minutes allotted in a session. And then I come the next time, and again the same story. And when I came the third time, he says, stop before you start talking. If I didn't answer to your call for help, it isn't that I don't have what to say to you, but I felt for the sake of therapy, I should not talk to you about the show. And when I came and I was hired for Amcha, and I said what I may talk to them about, it was in response to that. I wanted to know whether I may speak about the Shoah with Shoah survivors. That was the greatest thing that I brought to Amcha. They feel I was their treasure. And because the minute I met somebody, I tell you one instance, this lady who wrote my book, okay? What's her name? Adler, Sabine Adler. When I met her, and I told her I'm working with Holocaust survivors, and I'm working with families, their families, the survivors themselves and their families. And she said, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. You rage and you start something new and da, da, da. I must see this. She came to Israel with her husband. And she came with me, and I had to clear it everywhere at Amcha and with the patients and with their families that I am bringing somebody to be part of a session. And I did get the permission. And she came in, and when we came into the old age home where the patient was, and because she had a personal trauma, and she didn't know how to get out of it. Her mother gave birth to 3 children, and she sent them all, this is Germans. These are Germans. She sent them all to orphanages, and 3 of them grew up in an orphanage. And she couldn't get her mother. She's a push-it lady, probably. Not very smart.
A simple lady.
Simple lady, yes. And she could never confront her mother to say, how can you do that? So she said, I didn't know how to bring up children. She said, so why do you bring up 3? After the first one, you stop having children if you don't know how to bring them up. And you have to send them to, So she had an extremely good, I have to finish reading this book. So this is this was no, but that one case, and that's it. Okay. Pretty late in my, I worked for 27 years. I was on their payroll. And one time, maybe 10 or 12 or 15 years before I ended, we get a call, Amcha gets a call, they need a therapist for my mother, somebody who speaks Hungarian. I'm the only one, no more. And I went there. She lived, she's no longer alive. I sat down to one chair, she was sitting here. She's a table a big table. The minute I sat down and I said what my name is and where I am from and where I was approximately her age, and I came also from Hungary, which her place had also been taken over by the Hungarians, so we have the same calendar, exactly same date. And she started telling me the story. She didn't want to hear a word about me. I told her whatever I wanted her to know. So she said when she was about 16, and they were going, there was one of the, I called it the fateful nights that happened to us before going to the ghetto or before going to nights where you are at home, you try to think what else and what to do and how to prepare yourself. And her little community of not too many Jews, they had that shtick. Every community, every Goyish community that processed us to go to Auschwitz had their own shticks. The shtick of this community was that they examined physically everybody who went on the train to look whether they are holding, whether they try to hide some valuables on their body. Okay? She's telling me this. And her mother stands behind her, and in between the line that goes back, and the door that leads into the police where they're doing this shtick is a, what do you call it in Hebrew? Like they have in the streets when they put it down, when what do you call it? No, a wooden, a barzel.
It's like a metal, a metal iron. A metal or iron.
No. It's whatever they call in Hebrew, something to protect this one or this side, something.
A barrier.
Barrier, yes. So there was a barrier. So the mother is after the daughter, right? I'm talking about the woman. The lady, so her mother stands behind her. She comes forward. There stands here a policeman, And she says to him, please leave this child alone. She's so innocent. She's so naive. Don't leave her alone. And they didn't listen to her. And she went through, like everybody else, a bodily examination to find gold or money or diamonds, whatever, hidden. I know people who survived with that thing. She got out and she went through the Shoah with one sister, older, much older sister, for a few months, and then they separated them, as was pretty usual. And she came home alone, survived, and she came to the village where her brother and 3 sisters were there. They already came home. They survived. Wonderful. In one family, 5 people survived. It's a good number. And she was very happy that they all survived. And then she realized that none of them remained religious. None of them. And she's very religious. And it hurt her so much that she couldn't stay with them. And she left them. And this was in Slovakia. And she went to Pressburg, to Bratislava, Pressburg, to stay there in a young women's group home. And there was a Rabbi Schoenfeld. He's famous, very famous. Today,
Solomon Schoenfeld. Solomon Schoenfeld.
I don't know what his name was, but he was very active in sending these young people to Scotland or to England. First,
He even brought them to his mother's home.
pardon?
He even brought them to his mother's home to put them up. He did
Really?
He did everything.
Well,
to
where
say.
was he from?
He actually learned in Slovakia, but he was originally from England.
He was from England.
He's
Okay, no, but he sent her to Scotland, and she was there with other girls, and they were working a little bit and learning something a little bit. And then they were sent to London, where the majority were sent to London. And then they married her off. She wasn't very old. She must have been 18, 19, 20 maybe. And the man was a very fine man from Vienna. And as a youngster, family sent him to England, the children transport or whatever they call that.
Kindertransport.
Kindertransport, yes. And so they got married, and it was a fine match. She was a very fine young lady. She read books, but she couldn't speak any other language than Yiddish, or not so well, Hungarian. He didn't speak any other language than German or English. That's what he spoke at home. And so she didn't have a speaking relationship with him. Can you imagine this? To explain to him that she has a trauma. He wouldn't understand. She couldn't explain it. He was also very shy, she should have gone through psychotherapy by a doctor who can explain to her what happened to her and what. So she finished telling me the story, and I heard. And then I said to her, okay, fine. Now I would like to see your whole family together. She gave birth to 5 sons and 1 daughter. And they were excellent children. I stayed with her over 10 years. Much over 10 years. I was like her mother and sisters and brothers all together, because I could understand her language. And I said, I would like to see your whole family. And they came here. And I have one of these artificial orchids were brought by them. And another flower, which was also brought by them. I think they must have been once or twice here. There was a monumental change in her and her children. She said, what she told me at the beginning was that her daughter is very cold to her. 1 daughter she had. And they were all married, but no, except for 1. They were all married. And she was the coldest.
The daughter?
The daughter. And the boys, up to Haifa, they lived in different places. Beit Shemesh, all the suburbs of Yerushalayim, they all lived in the suburb. She was in the old age home. There was not a day that somebody shouldn't come to visit her and call and do things for her, everything. But she said that from that day on, that they were here talking, we didn't talk about the mother's problem. We did not talk about it. We just talk about Lager and about your mother, the mother's situation. She talked about it, and they listened. The daughter changed, and I was with her for over 10 years, and I was with her when her daughter would come every week, clean her closets, take out the winter things, went shopping with her, went out for a walk and took her to a konditorei, to a cafe to entertain her mother, and she was so good to her. And the children, and the grandchildren, and the great-grandchildren. She died not long ago, but they didn't let me know. I don't know why. Maybe it was during the
Corona.
Yes. But this was, this is the power of language. And nobody around her realized. She never spoke about this to the children. And the father was a wonderful person. Wonderful person. And he spoke to the children. He didn't know, and they didn't tell him, and catastrophe.
But look what you did. Gita, look what you did. You saved the family.
Well,
Gita,
I'm a professional.
Gita, I just want to thank you.
Thank you very much.
So Gita, I'm lost for words. Really, and that's very rare. But there are no words. your story and how you relate and what you've done and what you've achieved, there really are no words. I often ask survivors that I have the honor, the privilege to interview, what message can you impart, or what message do you give? But your whole story is a message. Your whole life is a message.
You know what I want to tell you? Yet, one more story.
Okay.
That's a recent story.
So I'm going to thank you in advance, and then we're going to hear the story. I can spend hours and days and months hearing every story.
This is about when I was given the medallion. And I didn't know, for months I was not sleeping. The minute the award ceremony came to mind, it was the end of my life. I couldn't sleep anymore. What on earth am I going to speak about? I know what I want to say. I want to say that my friendship to some of these German people. I have a few German friends, I would say, because when I go to Germany, I went 6 times to Germany, they were there to help me and to make life better and to talk to me and to ask me. They were, and I know that they meant it really because they are sorry that we went through all these things. But still, there's always in the back of my mind this thought, maybe it'll happen again. Or maybe they're not really true friends. Or maybe, what would my father do if he would know? My mother would be tolerant to such things because she was a people who made friends. So, in the end, and I was thinking and thinking, I couldn't come to any story, that I could tell. My daughter went and wrote down 4 lines, and then she wrote those 4 lines out with this size letters, about 5 pages. And so I could read it because what she said was wonderful and enough, but I had my own agenda. So when we were talking about making this award ceremony, I said, how about music? Because I know I heard about events and people went to a hotel and hired 3 musicians, one on the piano and one on the kinar and one on a blowing instrument, some kind of wind instrument, and there was music, but that's not what the music I wanted. And Dr. Martin Auerbach, who also worked for AMCA, he's a psychiatrist. And he got a few months after I got my notice, he got a notice also that he got the medal. And we were planning this, and he says, why don't we do it together? Fine, good for me. So we planned it together, and I said, music? He said, of course, music. And he brought me some songs, Yiddish songs, and I meant for my musicians to be my 3 grandchildren.
Oh, sure.
Everyone is, Baruch Hashem, very musical family. And one of them, did you hear about an instrument called It's a Persian instrument. It's a big, fat glob of wood, and in the front it has a big neck on which there are
the strings are attached.
Strings, and he puts this thing on his knee, holds it here, he plays with his his fingers on the strings, and he plays with the, what do you call this thing?
It's like from the violin. It's the,
No, yeah, but same as the violin. What do you call it? There's the instrument and there is the whatever. Anyway, he plays that. Comanche, it's called, this instrument. It's a beautiful, deep voices, very somber. And one of them is singing and playing the piano, but we didn't have a piano. He plays the guitar and he has a wonderful, strong voice. And I'll tell you what I said. So yeah, the first one was, of course, I thank the president for giving me this honor. And then I said I said something about how difficult it for me is to express this. And then I read what Yair said. Yair said, in the last, when she's a very practical thinking person, very logical thinking, and she wants everything to be logical and proper and appropriate. So she said, for the last 20 years, since I've come from the United States, the two things I was engaged most in was talking about the Shoah, and in all kinds of places. And also taking children, students and adults and the police and the IDF.
Here's a picture exactly of you.
You want to
with
take a picture
girls.
of it?
This is a picture of you with the girls in Auschwitz.
Yeah, of course. This is Birkenau.
This is Birkenau.
If you see this, you know, this picture is the Semmel
It's
of Birkenau. And the train goes through here, this gate.
But you took this group of girls.
Pardon?
This is one of the many groups that you've taken to Auschwitz-Birkenau.
Well, somebody took it. This was a gift to me from one of the schools.
This is from Ortora Stone.
Ortora.
And if anybody comes to Gita, to your home, you'll see from the IDF, you'll see from Yad Vashem, from all organizations thanking you for your...
So let me tell you what I did. So I said this. I said that for the last 20 years I've been developing this speech, and it just has come. You learn it and you remember everything of it. And if you know you remember the facts, it's easy to go through it and talk about it. But that's not what I said. I said, so okay, and what did she say? I said when I stood before this paper, I said, I never once read a speech from a paper. So I just said it spontaneously.
It came from the heart.
Okay, so listen. So in the end, and she said that I said it to remember all our dear ones who passed away in the Shoah. And then I said something about this skeleton that I saw in the room. I just said it to say that almost 80 years after, it still is so alive that it can cause me to really grow shorashim in the ground. I cannot move because this reminded me of it. You know, that it's not forgettable, non-forgettable. And then I said, now let me change the topic. I said, in the 18th century of our era, there was a change. There was a trend that changed the traditional way of believing, of developing faith in God, recognizing God. The previous generations believed that you have to learn and learn and learn about God in the innumerable books that were written, dictated by God and written by people, and and this new trend in the 18th century, the first person who came up with this new idea was, his name was the man who possessed a good name, Baal Shem Tov.
Baal Shem Tov.
And his name will tell you what his thought was, that you are great if you can do great things for your friends and brothers and sisters. And I said, one of the students of this man of great name was called Elimelech from Lishansk, and I arrived at Shira when I was taking groups of students to Poland. I arrive at least once a year, several times a year. I came to Lizhensk because we brought children, our students, our charges, to see the place. They come in, it's a village with
I've been there. It's, they have the kever of Rav Elimelech Milizhansk.
Of course. I said, described it. I said, there is a little forest where there is the cemetery. There are no Jews there anymore. But it's a little house in the old cemetery. It is a little house, and in one of the rooms is the grave, and the kids come in and start dancing around the grave and singing. And on the wall, there's a song which, part of a prayer that this man, Rav Elimelech Lizhansk, he composed the prayer and the song. And I want to tell you the English version of the text of this song, and then I want my musician to play it and sing it. And if anybody knows the song, they may hum along with him. And I said, it says, in the prayer says that God Almighty give me that I should not be jealous of others, and that others shouldn't be jealous of me. And Adrabah is even more so. Put it into our hearts. Put it into our hearts that we should see our fellow men and our brothers. We should see them only in their virtues and not their vices. Only positive things should be. And okay. And now, please play it. He played on this thing.
Yeah.
There was another kid who had an electric piano, and he played it, and they sang it. It was very beautiful. And then I told them, give me room, a little space to finish my speech. And then I said, and the message to the world is that if every father and mother and every teacher would teach this to their children,
To be a different
our
world.
world would be a different place, a better place.
What
for
a
it.
beautiful message, Gita. But you embody this message, Gita. You really do. This is who you are. Gita, you've touched so many people's lives. So many people's lives.
Interesting that my daughter Yael was afraid that it would be mushy, it would be schmaltzy. And everybody who commented about my speech said that what I said in the end, that was the real message, not what was logical and...
It encapsulates everything. Gita, it's unbelievable. And Gita, sure, this has been, just knowing you is the greatest honor. But Gita, I must just mention, we would always say Admei Vesrin,
Yes.
but Admei Shmonim, till 180, in good health, in all of Hashem's blessings.
Oh, man.
And you must just continue, Gita. You are invaluable. There is no one like you.